Anthony, when you look at just how much rates have dropped this year and just how little the market has moved on top of it, and the fact that late last year the NASDAQ 100 hit a brief record high, do you think that there's still too much euphoria in this market?
Well, I mean, listen, it ebbs and flows, as we all know, and I think the anticipation of the rates coming down is what really led to the run-up last year. So we're chugging along right now. There are profits participants that are taking profits right now. There are other institutions that are establishing positions. We're seeing the same thing in the cryptocurrency space. But I think it would be really hard to fight the Fed here, Sonali. I would not be in a position, if rates are actually going to trend lower through the year, to get bearish on this market. So it's not historically too expensive. And there's a lot of good things happening in the market related to technological innovation. So we're generally bullish for 2024.
A lot of questions about technological innovation and market innovation. We've been talking a lot about the advent of these Bitcoin ETFs, yet you're seeing Bitcoin trade pretty meaningfully lower. What do you think is happening here?
Well, there's three things that we can see happening from the Skybridge desk. Number one, there seems to be a lot of selling of Grayscale. Profit taking, that would be, or loss taking, I should say. That would be people that bought the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, say the 50s up to 69,000. They're taking profits, or taking losses, I should say, booking those losses, and then swapping into lower priced ETFs than Grayscale. Of course, Grayscale being priced at 150 basis points at the high end of those 11 ETFs. The second thing we're seeing is that the estate, the bankruptcy estate for FTX, is unloading into the ETF announcement. And so there's a heavy volume of selling in Bitcoin right now. We see that as temporary. I don't think that you can have 160% rise in an asset over, let's say, a year and half a month, and then expect it to just go straight up after the announcement. So I do expect that supply overhang to be done over the next 6 to 8 trading days. And then I think you'll see the trend start again upward for Bitcoin, because the demand is out there. Also, remember one last thing. There's been a quiet period for Wall Street. Wall Street has not been able to market this ETF, and that'll start in about 8 days as well.
Anthony, do you think that there is a robust market for all the spot Bitcoin ETFs that were approved? A lot of people immediately said, you know, when you think of gold ETFs, you think of GLD. Will the money flows kind of tell us a story of one dominant name in the weeks ahead, do you think?
Probably two dominant names. I think it'll be BlackRock and Fidelity will be the two dominant names. They have the largest sales forces, and you know this about financial services. The gravity of financial services are assets, and those are two of the big players in the ETF space. So I suspect they'll probably be the two winners. I think you're asking a really good question, though, about long-term demand for Bitcoin. And I would just pose the question back to you, and I want you to imagine the number of people that will be told by Wall Street financial advisors, Wall Street salespeople, Wall Street consultants, that they need to hold a 1% to 2% position in Bitcoin. And then the last point, think of these portfolio managers at big places like Fidelity and BlackRock in their all-weather sort of diversified macro funds. Will they hold 1% to 2%, 3% of these ETFs? I think the answer to that is yes. And this is the first ETF that we've ever had where there's a fixed supply, and I think certainly lots and lots of demand, if not endless demand.
And just to say on that math, because you and I have talked about this before, if 1% to 3% is something that a wider swath of investors say they're willing to commit to, let's say the bullish pundits on Bitcoin are correct and the price continues to rise and subsequently it has a larger stake in one's portfolio, what happens at that point in time?
Well, I'm going to be very happy at that point in time. Let's just point that out. But I actually think what happens is it trends to the market capitalization of gold. And so Bitcoin right now at these lower prices, probably a $700 billion market cap. Gold is roughly 14 trillion. And let's say that we're half right and Bitcoin can get to a $7 trillion market cap. Now, is that going to happen immediately, John? I don't think that happens immediately, but could it happen by the end of the decade? I think that's very likely. And so you have a 10x move by the end of the decade. That would be coincident with what happened in Web 1 and Web 2 stocks as they got adopted. And of course, my good friend Dan Tapiero would tell you that we're only at a 4% global adoption for Bitcoin, which is consistent with where Web 1 was in 1998. So just imagine we could be sitting here in 2030, Bitcoin at a $7 trillion market capitalization. I don't think that that's too aggressive. And that's a 10x number from here. It makes it, we think, a great long-term investment story.
Anthony, I see you're over in Switzerland. I know you have a big event over in Davos as well. But even before that, there's something big in Iowa, the Iowa caucuses. I'm wondering how you see the Iowa caucuses really changing the narratives heading into and out of it around the Republican Party.
Well, listen, I mean, it looks like Mr. Trump is unstoppable. Don't go by me. You could look at the polls, or you could look at the prediction markets. His numbers have only gone up over the last 3 or 4 weeks, not down. Governor Christie dropping out of the race may help Governor Haley in New Hampshire. It'll be hard to see what happens. Certainly, if Mr. Trump wins or the president wins in Iowa, he'll carry some momentum into New Hampshire. I'm just going to take a contrarian view here, though. I think the legal problems for President Trump could derail his candidacy. I know other people don't think that, but I just want you to imagine what happened to Al Capone or somebody like John Gotti. Everybody thought that they were untouchable until, of course, they were touchable. And he's got 4 major indictments, 91 counts that he's faced with. And just remember this last point, Mark Meadows, he is his former chief of staff. He ran the most conservative part of the House. The Freedom Caucus is the chief witness for the prosecution as it relates to the insurrection case. So I think there's a lot of legal trouble ahead for Mr. Trump. I could be wrong about that. And if I am wrong about it, it looks like he will head to the nomination for the Republicans.